Hi, I'm Kay Gabriel. I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Poetry Project tonight to celebrate and to hear from Derek McCormack and Dennis Cooper. This is really amazing. What a wonderful crowd. Thank you for coming. Some logistics before I get started. Before we get started, bathrooms are under the stairs here. Yes, there are some upstairs, but because I think it will interrupt the proceedings, I'm gonna ask people to line up at those bathrooms rather than keeping on running out and coming back in through this door. Smoking. I noticed that the church got rid of the cigarette towers, so unless that's not true, if people could please smoke on the curb instead of in the yard, that would be awesome. Thank you as well to my colleagues at the Poetry Project, staff and volunteers who are helping us tonight, to James who's running sound, and to Lix who's running video, and to our documentarians, Chris and Patrick from Toronto. Nice to see you guys. Nice to have you. Lovely to have you as a part of this. You are all being filmed right now by the government. You have been warned. What else do I need to tell you? We have copies of the Poetry Project newsletter. We have the current summer issue, and we also have the spring issue, which features an interview with Dennis that Nico Halakainen did. It's really beautiful. Please pick up a copy if you haven't already. Here is the run of show for tonight. I'm going to talk for a couple more minutes. I am going to invite up Sam Max, who will introduce Derek McCormack. Derek will read. I will invite up David Velasco. David will introduce Dennis. Dennis will read. And then we will go and continue the debauch elsewhere. This is a really special night for all of us. It's to make it about me, it's really special for me personally. These are two writers who have transformed the way I write, and the way I think about sentences, and the way I think about narrative, and what writing does for people. Derek McCormack first crossed my desk where I think I was visiting the Bay, and it was 2018, and my friend Danny Wynn, who had found out about Derek's work through Kevin Killian, was like, you have to get into Derek, he was like, you're Canadian? You have to get into Derek McCormack. Canadian excellence is really thick on the ground tonight, especially for people who are coming from the Walter Scott launch yesterday. Hi, Walter. Thanks for being here. And Danny was like, Derek is a sentence writer from another planet. And when I read Derek's work, I saw why. So Derek, it's really special to have you here at the Poetry Project for the very first time, which makes me feel like we've been fucking up, but thank you for coming. Dennis Cooper has not read here. I looked this up right before the reading. Has not read here since March 21st, 1990. And you read with Kenward Elmsley, who is also in a very different way, very special to the Poetry Project. So it's wonderful after a 34-and-a-half-year break to welcome you back to the stage. Thank you both for coming. And let's get started. Sam Max will introduce Derek. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kay. I'm not a Canadian, just to start. I hate to break the chain because Derek is one, and he'll come next. But tonight, I'm here to set the record straight, actually. Derek is a menace and a threat to public safety. He is also a faggot who's obsessed with his own shit. Shit, shit, shit. Shit's the flavor of Faggotland, McCormack writes in his book Castle Faggot, which contains a manual for a theme park that doesn't exist called Faggotland. Faggotland is where faggots go to die. The park slogan is faggots, kill yourselves. In the park, visitors become dead faggots, and dead faggots become decorations who can't stop shitting. McCormack writes, describing Faggotland, there are shitty rides, shitty restaurants, shitty shops. There are restrooms, shitloads of shitty restrooms. There are turds in the toilets, turds in the sinks, There are 7 turds in this sentence. Derek is a writer whose fixation on shit makes Sallow or the 120 Days of Sodom look like a commercial for Little Debbie snack cakes. In fact, he has once described shit as being the emotional center of his work, as well as its most consistent motif. For McCormack, shit is the purest symbol, an externalization, if you will, of homosexual objection. Derek writes in Judy Blame's obituary, the compilation of his writing on fashion and death, "When I hear writers talk about writing as freedom, as an expression of emotions, as a calling or a communication or a conversation, I laugh. I can't conceive of writing without disgust as the central driving force and as the desired effect. Writing is devotion to disgust." Later in the same volume, he describes celebrating Halloween as a child. "As a boy, I went trick-or-treating as a witch. I went as a skeleton. I was Dracula. Since I felt like a monster, why not be a monster whom the others feared?" In my favorite of Derek's books, The Well-Dressed Wound, Margiela is the gay devil, and he's come back from the dead to shoot his load all over Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln's dead gay son, who is also Derek, squeals with joy while Margiela comes all over his dad. At least that's how I remember it. The Well-Dressed Wound, like all Derek's work, is a special kind of parlor trick that ends up making a photo negative of the world, like a pair of cursed 3D glasses. The box of cereal leaves an indentation of what it was. The pearl necklace is suddenly a string of pustules. The party balloon tied to the back of a chair is actually a man who's been insufflated in order to remove cancer from his body. To read Derek McCormack is to surrender to psychophaganalysis. The experience is so personal and so true, it almost feels cruel. His writing is like getting an involuntary enema while you're sleeping. Unexpected, uncomfortable, and surprisingly laxative. But when it's done, you feel a hell of a lot lighter, and you're really fucking glad someone had the idea. Please welcome to the Poetry Project a true original and one of my favorite dead writers, Derek McCormack.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Kay. Am I good? Those books sound horrible, whatever you were talking about. And I was sitting there listening to like a description of my books, and I was thinking, thank God I've gotten past that. And then I remembered what I was going to read tonight, which is what you would call more of the same shit. I haven't got it out of my system yet, but I swear this is the last of it. This is the tail end of it, I swear. I'm moving on. I'm growing up. Thank you to the Poetry Project for having me. Thank you to Kay for reaching out. Thank you for putting me on a bill with Dennis Cooper, who is my favorite writer and who has been my favorite writer forever. He's also my friend. He has been my publisher at times, my supporter all the time. He took me out for Halloween one year in Los Angeles. And I love Dennis, and I love that I get to be here, and I love that I get to see him read, and I'm so glad I'm reading before him, because he is a difficult act to follow. Thank you. There's so fucking many people here. Thank you very, very much. Thank you to people who came from other cities, and from other states, and from Canada. Also, we're live streaming, right? We're on YouTube, so I want to say hello. I want to send some hellos home, especially to one house in particular. So, hello, Jack. Hello, Liz Sullivan and my sister Melissa, and big hello to Jason McBride, my best friend. A bunch of people here know Jason, and I bet a bunch more read Eat Your Mind, his brilliant biography of Kathy Acker that came out a couple years ago. He's had a month. He's had a bunch of surprise medical procedures, and he's good. He's getting better. He's getting better and better. But he couldn't be here, and I miss him. So I'm going to dedicate my reading tonight to him. Wait a second. Oh my God, I took so many pills, like 3 minutes before I got up here. And I was going to say if I start repeating myself, someone say something, but then like my writing is just the same sentence over and over again, so how would you know? But go ahead and say something if you want. Okay, I'm going to read something new. I'm going to read part of something new. It'll appear in the nearest future in a book I'm publishing with Jordan Stein at Cushionworks Gallery in San Francisco. And the book is a catalog of a collection of jewelry I created. By jewelry, I really, really, really mean junk. And by created, I mean I pasted and taped and pinned a bunch of crap together. My friend Jennifer Krasinski is here, though I don't know where. She's wearing a bracelet from the collection, so if you ask her to model it, she might, if it's still together. Is it holding together? I'm a fucking genius. Thank you, Jennifer. So forever and ever and ever, I've been collecting country music memorabilia from the 40s and 50s. That means souvenirs of Nashville, souvenirs of the Grand Ole Opry, souvenirs of the museums, and gift shops, record shops, roadside attractions that so many country stars of that time owned and operated. And the last couple of years, I took it all and I turned it all into a collection of bracelets and brooches and necklaces. And when I had completed the collection, I sat down and I wrote this essay about how brilliant it was. And you're going to hear it tonight. My chief aim really with writing the essay was to construct a backstory for it, to come up with a big fiction framework for the collection. And what I came up with is so preposterous that I feel I have to prepare you a bit for it with like a little précis of what's coming. So this is what's what. In the article, it's not me who made the collection of jewelry, it's Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren. That's point one. Point two, Westwood and McLaren are vampires. Point three, Westwood and McLaren, like all vampires, I guess, can travel back and forth in time. And so, after creating the classic clothes of punk in the 70s, they travel to Nashville, where they stage a show for vampires who go to the Grand Ole Opry. That was three. Four, Vampire Vogue, which is, as you know, the most venerable of all vampire fashion magazines, covers the collection. And the review they run has the byline by Hank Williams, which is bullshit. It's just a tension grabber. Actually, I wrote the article. Hank Williams never wrote for Vampire Vogue. 5. A couple years later, in 1952, I published a book about the collection, or about the jewelry that Westwood and McLaren made. And the book has tons of photos. It has the article I wrote. It has a foreword by McLaren. And this is the book Cushionworks is doing. So when it comes out, it'll say copyright 2025 or 2026. But in my mind, it's copyright 1952. That's the year I put it out and the year it disappeared. Okay. One more thing. There's so much shit in this section I'm going to read. And shit appears on the page as M dashes. So when I hit a shit, I'm going to say shit, and then I'm going to do this, which will be my shit signal. And if I hit a patch with a bunch of shits, I'll do this. But later in the article, I also use vertical slashes as shit. So I will do this to signify them. Okay, that should cover it. The hyphens are hyphens. They're just hyphens. As poops, hyphens are super unimpressive. All right. The Shithole Opry by Hank Williams, special to Vampire Vogue. Welcome, vampires, to the Grand Ole Opry, which you call the Shithole Opry, in Music City, USA, which you call Music Shitty, USA, in the United States of America, which you call the United Shits of America. Vampires, the Grand Ole Opry's the biggest hillbilly show of them all. You love it. Vampires love shit. The Opry's home to the biggest hillbilly stars of them all. You love them. Vampires love hillbilly shit. The hillbilly stars sing hillbilly songs, tell hillbilly jokes, and do hillbilly dances, all with hillbilly shit in their shitholes. You love to suck it out. It tastes like moonshine. Vampires love moonshine. These are the stars of your show. This is String Bean, suck his shithole. This is Grandpa Jones, suck his shithole. This is the Gully Jumpers, suck their shitholes. This is Ernest Tubb and his Texas Troubadours, suck their buttholes, or are they tub holes? This is the starriest star of all, and the moonshiniest, the drunk king of country music, the shit-faced hillbilly Shakespeare himself, me. I'm Hank Williams. Who are you? You're Derek McCormack, the vampire novelist. You have me in a bathroom backstage. You've slashed the seat of my trousers so my shithole shows. Your face is shoved in it. You suck it and suck it. You suck a shit out, then spit it out. It's not mine. This is it. It's a plastic poop. It's stuck with a silver sticker that says, Hillbilly Heaven, Westwood/McLaren, Nashville, Tennessee. What? What the hell? What the hell is this shit? That's what you're wondering when who shows up but Westwood and McLaren. The vampire provocateurs behind Sex, the Sex Pistols, and this, shit for shit suckers. They're so sacrilegious. They tell you they're here at the Grand Ole Opry, the mother church of country music, to serve Satan and to turn the Opry punk and to vaunt the sort of far-out fashions they're famous for. Tonight, they say, is the premiere presentation of Hillbilly Heaven, a fashion collection for Opry stars and the vampires who love them. It's shit as in shit and shit as in styles, jewelry and vogaries, objet d'art and objet de fart. What to wear to suck shit from Opry stars, what shit to suck from them. Shit, that's the theme of the Hillbilly Heaven collection, which is what it should be. This is the golden age of shit at the Opry. I'm the star of the show. My shithole's the star of my ass. My shit's the star of my shithole. The Grand Ole Opry airs all over the country on WSM radio, whose call letters stand for We Shit Moonshine. Or do they stand for We Satanic Minions? Or do they stand for Westwood/McLaren? You've come to cover it for Vampire Vogue. You're the perfect fit for this story. You're famous, for writing novels about sucking shit. The Well-Dressed Wound about sucking shit out of Stephen Foster, the father of American music. The Show That Smells about sucking shit out of Jimmy Rogers, the father of country music. The Haunted Hillbilly about sucking shit out of Hank Williams. Hank Williams, that's me. They show you shits on a tray. They're all plastic with stickers on them. Shit, 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 shit. They shove a shit in me. Then they shove in another, then another. Then they shove in another, then another, then another. Then they shove in another, then another, then another, then another. Then they shove in another, then another, then another, then another, then another, then another, Then they pinch the lips of my shithole and pierce them with a safety pin. Safety pins are punk. Surprise! These are the shits they shove up my shithole to surprise the vampires that suck them out. This is shit as advertisement, an advert turd. This is shit as invitation, not an RSVP, but an RSV poo. This is shit as souvenir. Aren't all shit souvenirs? Aren't all shit souvenirs of hillbilly heaven? This is shituationism. They shove shits into my shithole, then shove me into the Grand Ole Opry like the Opry's a shithole. Then shove the Grand Ole Opry into the world like the world's a shithole. They call this culture. This isn't a détournement, it's a déturdement. They turn the Grand Ole Opry House into their fashion house. I'm the face of it, or the ass. They turn the Opry House into their fashion show. I'm in fashion, and so is what's in me. They turn the Opry's top star, Hank Williams, me, into their fashion model and also into fashion itself. I'm what's in store for their first season, spring, summer 1950, S/S as in shittier. Which comes first, 1950 or 1976? The Opry or punk? Vogue or vampire Vogue? This is satanic time, time as shit. There's no first, only second. That is, there's only number two. So, Westwood and McLaren shit out Hank Williams, me. So, Hillbilly Heaven by Westwood and McLaren shits out what I, Hank Williams, wear. So, the shithole Opry shits out the Grand Ole Opry, though it's neither grand nor old nor opera. The shit I shit out is someone else's shit. It's plastic, but it smells like mine, like shit, blood, and booze, a digestive. Slick, like someone already sucked it. Satan? Satan sucked this shit. The Hillbilly Heaven collection features a couple of fashion firsts, the rhinestone suit and the rhinestone shit. They show you a rhinestone suit. I'm wearing it. The Hank Williams, that's the name of it. Sometimes suits have names. The embroidery is by Nudie Cohn, who's known as Nudie, the rodeo tailor, who covered the back of the coat in rhinestones, 1,000 shit-colored stones that create a picture of my head and cowboy hat. Nudie's a vampire and a devotee of Westwood and McLaren's oeuvre. The Hank Williams suit, Westwood and McLaren tell you, is a masterwork. Then they slash at it with razor blades. They scrape them down my face. Rhinestones fall to the floor. The stones are cuts called chaton. My skin chaton. My lips are chaton. My eyes are chaton. There are also some cut stones called ashers. Why they're called that, I don't know. What will they do with them? They show you a tray of shits that are studded with rhinestones. Shit, 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 shit. They look like things rhinestone suits might shit out. They're slathered with stones, these cheap, prank plastic poops, the tips as pointy as fangs. They pull out the safety pin and shove a rhinestone shit in me. Then they shove in another, then another. Then they shove in another, then another, then another. Then they shove in another, then another, then another, then another. Then they pinch the lips of my shithole and pierce them with a safety pin, then another pin, then another, and so on, so that they make a monogram. This is the monogram HH. What drew Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren to the Grand Ole Opry? The shit. The Opry stars are shitty, shitty singers and shitty players because we want to be shitty. The Opry's shitty, shitty sets, shitty seats, and shitty souvenirs because we want it to be shitty. The Opry is a cult of shit. We want to draw demons to us. We want demons to devour us the way that they devour our turds. Why else would we keep singing with this stupid twang? Why else would we keep shitting? What we wish is to turn into shits so that Satan himself will suck us. Westwood and McLaren grant us our wish. They turn us into shits by turning us into faggots. They turn us into faggots by shoving rhinestone shits into us. Who but faggots would wear rhinestone shits? They turn us into faggots by shoving us into rhinestone suits. Who but faggots would wear rhinestone suits? They shove rhinestones into us and onto us for Satan. Satan loves rhinestones. Rhinestones are the faggots of the mineral world. Satan loves faggots. Faggots are the shit of humankind. I am a faggot shit for Satan. The Hillbilly Heaven collection has shits and suits, yes, but also shirts, hats, handbags, a ton of jewelry, and a ton of souvenirs. I'm a souvenir of my shit. Westwood and McLaren welcomed Jordan into the John to tell you about it. Jordan's their muse. She's punk. She's wearing a t-shirt by Hillbilly Heaven. It features a picture of my face on it. She scratched it with a ballpoint pen so it says, I hate. She then scratched out a single letter so it says, I ate. Jordan's their vendeuse. She sticks out her tongue. She stitched rhinestones to it. She'll be selling the Hillbilly Heaven collection at the Westwood and McLaren shop on King's Road in London. She'll also be selling it at Hillbilly Heaven, a boutique dedicated to the collection, which is located in a cave beneath the Opry. I will describe the boutique better down below. Jordan tells you that the rhinestone shits are price upon request. They can be shoved up your shithole or someone else's shithole. They're best when worn with rhinestone suits. The suits bring out the sparkle in your ass. Jordan tells you about what Westwood's wearing, a rhinestone suit with all the stones razored off. What remains are slashes and stray threads. McLaren's in a suit with the words Hillbilly Heaven written in rhinestones on the back. Nudie stitched them on, then McLaren slashed them off, then shoved the stones up my shithole, then sucked them out, then had Nudie stitch them back on again. Jordan tells you about suits in the collection. There are coats whose pockets they've stuffed with rhinestones, then sewn shut. There are pants with the bum covered on the outside in brown stones and pants with the bum covered on the inside in brown stones. There are brown stones sewn secretly into the seams of seats. There are cowboy boots with brown stones set into the soles. The collection's signature pant comes with the seat slash to show the shithole and the shit sticking out. Shit turning into shit, turning into shit. This is Hillbilly Heaven. They buy things from Hank and Audrey's Corral, the shop that me and my wife operate across from the Opry. They buy cloth dolls of me and stuff them with safety pins and stick safety pins through my doll lips. There are things they buy at Minnie Pearl's country store on Commerce Street. They buy copies of her hat and leave them alone. They're perfect as they are. They buy bottles of cheap perfume. They steep rhinestones in it. They buy bottles of cheap cologne and steep rhinestones in it. The bottles are brown and shaped like barrels or blunderbusses, or, best of all, like outhouses with crescent moons carved into the doors. It's always nighttime in an outhouse. There are things they nab at Ernest Tubbs' record shop on Broadway. They take souvenirs and turn them into jewelry. They steal mail order forms and string them to their wrists, their bracelets. They steal receipts and string them to their necks, their necklaces. They steal strips from the jukebox and pin them to suits, their brooches. Those are the strips that say which song the juke will play. Press a letter and a number. P1 is me, S5 is me, P1, S5 spells piss. P0, O0, from my A5, S5 is E10. Then there's Roy Acuff, who has a cave north of the city that he converted into a dining and dance hall. Westwood and McLaren copied the concept for Hillbilly Heaven. They built a boutique in a cavern below the Opry Auditorium. The cavern's their calling card. It appears on price tags and shopping bags, on postcards and paper fans the shop sells, and in ads the shop places in Vampire Vogue. These are stalactites. Oh, it goes on. Wait. There's a cabin in their cave. It's a log cabin. It could be a moonshiner's cabin. It could be a miner's cabin. It could be the cabin I was born in Bumfuck, Alabama. It's the boutique. It's surrounded by cavern walls washed with red, green, and blue lights, the jewel tones of jukeboxes. Stalactites drip like they have diarrhea. The stalactites are studded with rhinestones, and why wouldn't they be? The cave's buried beneath the Opry. It's like the Opry's bowels. What would be more beautiful? These are the logs. What, I wonder, will you buy at the boutique? What will, shit, my shithole rips. My safety pins pop. Shit shoots out of me, it strikes the wall, it slides across the floor, it splashes in the toilet, and Jordan flushes it down. This is a real shit, and this is a fake. I start to sob. A lot of hillbilly stars sob during shows. I'm Hank Williams. I'm happy and sad. Happy to be shitting fashion shits. Sad because I'm a drunk. I'm a drug addict. I have a degenerative spinal disease. And what I want is to be a shit. I want to be shit because shit doesn't get tumors, it gets rhinestones. I want to be shit because shit doesn't get lesions, it gets labels. When will Satan make my wish come true? Westwood and McLaren show you some fake shits. Shit, 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 shit. The shits say Hank Williams. They all have my name studded on them in small brown stones, brown being a symbol of my butt. I told you. They start shoving shits into my shithole. They shove in Hank Williams, and another Hank Williams, and another Hank Williams, and another Hank Williams, and another Hank Williams. Who am I now? Hank Williams, Hank W. Shit, 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 AMS. When a fake shit shoved up my shithole, it turns into a real shit. What happens then? I turn fake. I turn into Hank Williams by Hillbilly Heaven. Who but Hank Williams would Hank Williams shits be wearing? Why, these shits are all wearing the same thing, me, which means that so far as they're concerned, I'm pret-a-porter. Westwood and McLaren show you some more fake shits. Shit, 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 shit. They're rhinestoned, each is adorned with an Opry star's name. The shits for Red Foley and Red Sovine feature red rhinestones. The shits for Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys boast blue rhinestones. The shit with mini pearls is mini pearls. They shove them all into my shithole. Who am I now? Hillbilly Heaven, H shit, 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 B shit, 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 Y heaven. Yes. The fake shits turn into real shits when they're shoved into my shithole. What happens then? I turn fake. That is, I turn into who the shits say I am. I'm him. I'm her. I'm all the hillbillies in the Grand Ole Opry. Would rhinestones lie? What I am is the Opry by Hillbilly Heaven. The shits are wearing me or trying to wear me. I'm suited to a single shit, Hank Williams, which means that as far as these custom shits are concerned, I'm couture. I'm ooh la la, and yodel-lay-hee hoo. I'm yodel-lay-hee hoo la la. What's important is this. Shit turns into I, and I turn into shit. Okay, that's enough of that. Thanks. Thank you.
I'm thinking we can keep going as far as I'm concerned. I'm thinking I should have stoned this thing. Next, thank you so much, Derek. That was extraordinary. Extraordinary shit. International shit. Next up, to introduce Dennis Cooper, please welcome David Velasco.
Wow. Jesus Christ, that was great. It's such an honor to be here to introduce Dennis, who's, I mean, you'll see, or you know, he's just a national treasure. Doesn't even begin to describe it. The first thing I heard about Dennis Cooper was that he's transgressive. That he writes snuff novels about young guys being abused, raped, murdered, cannibalized, often on video, snorting crystal, sacrificing cats to Satan, spiraling out to Guided by Voices, this kind of thing. Quote, that pornographic slaughterhouse that you call prose is how Santa Claus puts it in an email to a character named Dennis in Dennis's most perfect novel, I Wished. I think it was a boyfriend of mine that told me all this. And I remember thinking it was kind of horny that this grisly material hung around such a creepily average American-sounding name. The second thing I remember hearing, probably in school, is that Dennis's real interest is form, that the spooky content of his books is somehow subordinate to the elaborate architecture. Emphasizing form elevates the perversion into art, and thus makes the depravity safer, or at least more legitimate, like when the state hands a thug a uniform and a badge and calls him a cop. As though art were cleaner or more moral than sex. As though this weren't a pretty middle-class way of distracting us from the fact that you got a hard-on reading about boys porking other boys while they're getting hacked into pieces. I don't know that Dennis would identify with the form-content dialectic. That's just how his mythology got packaged for me. But the reason I fell in love with Dennis didn't have so much to do with either of those things, even though I think he's a genius at both. I fell in love with Dennis because of his sentences. Their irregular rhythm, something a little clunky next to something crisp and sonorous. It's the rhythm of bright, stoned teenagers talking, of good music, of invention itself. Sentences express the texture of a mind, and it's tempting to read them for clues, like how if you study someone's face long enough, you might decrypt the umbilicus of random accumulated experiences it's shepherded from the womb to this very moment it appears in front of you. A sentence like this, quote, I become a semi-guy who dealt with other people nicely, and another semi-guy who used the written word to challenge readers to accept the secret me selectively, and still another semi-me who wanted something so abnormal that even the unrivaled distancing device of nuanced, airtight wordage couldn't get it out to other people. A sentence like this has the erratic arc of a mind in action. You can feel the throb of that mind coming into being as it hijacks the hand and writes these words down. Arguably, reading is the closest you can get to being inside another person. Closer than sex, certainly. Another thing I mostly do in bed, a space also reserved for dreaming. But like sex, even when it's wildly pleasurable, it disappoints. The promise of access, the sacred de-alienation of the merge, flickers away with the last word, the receding oxytocin. At some point when you fuck someone, you realize that even though you're inside them, or they're inside you, that it's still membrane touching membrane, that try as you might, you haven't really crossed the threshold. If you do puncture the threshold, If you do it all the way, like might happen in a Dennis Cooper novel, everything will leak out, including their soul, which will escape into wherever. There's this idea that if we know someone's insides, we might also know how and what it means to love them. I get from Dennis this wanting to be so close you're inside another person, this intoxicating and deeply spiritual confusion around where I end and you begin. This wanting is alloyed with an understanding of the creepiness of this wanting, and ethics, if that's not too pretentious a word, of love. A way of honoring the simultaneous desire to cross and protect that threshold. Learning how to hold this tension might be the closest we get to actual love. And Dennis has shown us how to do this more beautifully than merely any writer I know. I think love is really important to Dennis, like it is to you and me. And sometimes I think when he's writing about George Miles, or one of George's alibis, that we're getting really near to that magic. That we're learning whether something like love can really exist that's not just a shadow of our own needs. I can feel Dennis circling, holding his Geiger counter and picking up stray bits of radiation emitted by love's decay. Or using echolocation, generating high-frequency pulses of material to see what hits. Like if he writes hard enough, he'll crack the code of love and maybe even broker a truce with its handmaiden, grief. Love is, I want to take my time studying Dennis's sentences, sounding their depths, tracking his mind and the ripples of the surface. Quote, I looked at you for a really long time, George Miles, 12, tells Dennis, 15, on a baseball field. It's the first day they met. I looked at you for a really long time, but I still don't know you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Coopers.
Oh gosh. Thank you, David. It's really amazing to read with Derek, so thank you for letting me read with you. And I want to thank Kay for inviting me to do this. And like this crazy amount of people that are here. It's fucking weird. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Torn from something. George's father is a failed Olympic gymnast who seems overly standoffish and dejected even for a Russian. He still looks teenaged in his early 30s except when he takes off his shirt because there's something too dog-eared about his muscles. George thinks he'd look exactly like his father if his father were a worm. He's a 12-year-old nobody much who wishes he could play guitar and is watching an American cartoon. In every country dubs its language over foreigners' TV shows, but in Russia it's a racket. One sermonizing voice reads the actor's dialogue as though the show were an appliance and their gab were its instructions, while the real sweet noises rollick faintly in the background. That's how the rest of the world sounds to Russians if they pay any attention at all. Donald Duck and his preposterous cohorts are like dolphins signaling their happiness to Russians through a bleak and different surface. It's a form of mind control that dates back to when the communists ran everything and makes children of an introspective bent think they can hear the truth attacking through their fruity little thoughts. George is chuckling at the TV's muffled playthings and hoping his mother will stand up. His father was scrubbing their bedroom furniture and walls with her fighting, flopping body for a long time. That sounded too familiar, but not the silence afterwards that will not stop. George's mind is saying, if your mother's dead, you'd better kill yourself. George's father barges in the living room and sits bizarrely near his son, which he'd never thought to try before. He seems dazed by the unprecedented access, and his hands throb from finally having killed his wife. He knows he'll have to kill George now, but first he tries watching the cartoon's rat-a-tatting nonsense. George isn't old enough to be a loss. He'll just turn one dead body into two, which isn't very different. People in their building have heard him beat his wife and son so many times they must be numbed. Maybe he could rape George if he finally wants to. Would those screams sound inconsistent? The only danger is he might kill himself for doing that. Is that a problem? When George's father was an 8-year-old, investigators from the Agency of Sports made a routine visit to his school. After watching him cartwheel and twirl above the playground swings and jungle gym, they bought him from his parents. He was positioned in a prison-like academy for potential medal winners along with close to 40 other boys with magic bodies. He was trained to win gold medals in gymnastics with short daily morning breaks to add a barren education. Sometimes he contested in minor showcase competitions in far-flung Russian provinces. He never won anything, but the crowds were full of pedophiles and girls who liked the prettiest contestant, and that was him. So many film crews shot George's father's grimacing angelic face that it became the public's mental image of Russia's gymnastic might for years. That usefulness kept him in the running long after better gymnasts had been axed. Nowadays, when people see George's father on the street, they often ask if he looked younger and important once. George's father unties his shoes and shakes them loose. He whips his t-shirt off. He unzips his pants or starts to. He rises to his feet so he can slide them down, but he's infirm from having killed his wife and so much less attracted to the chance of winning something that he slumps back on the couch instead and rubs his sore hands together. He starts to push George's head into his crotch, but the head feels like a lightly garnished skull. It makes him stop and think about the brain inside and then his son's dumb thoughts, whatever they might be. He pets the head while envisaging the thoughts he'd like to work with, then, having made George game, he lifts his hand off like a starting gate. George looks up weirdly at his father, then removes his t-shirt too. He holds the t-shirt tensely in his hand. George's father rips it from his son's hand and holds it stiffly in his own. He gives it half a chance to be a shirt, then thinks the Russian equivalent of fuck it, and wads the cloth until it's flower-shaped, then sniffs the image. His erection's coarse, straightforward wish gets dubbed atop whatever happiness his son and he had made together. He sort of wants to give the flower to George, but love seems stupid, so he drops the shirt, then makes a fist instead. George takes a giant breath, then arcs his back to make the strongest chest his ribcage can create. "Why did you take off your shirt?" George's father asks. "Because you did," George says. "Aren't you scared?" George's father asks. George nervously unbuckles the tongue and buckle of his belt, which has a cowboy style. "Yes," he says. George's father puts one hand inside the flash of underwear and grabs. "Thinks your hand is mine," George says. "Do you jack off?" George's father asks. "Sometimes," George says. "What do you think about when you jack off?" George's father asks. "What's the right answer?" George asks. He looks into his father's eyes, which either don't mean shit or are outdistanced by his mind's scared shit, then thinks about the question. "Sometimes my mother." "Your mother doing what?" George asks, and starts jacking off his son, who winces. "Not this," George says. "You should lick your fingers first." One of George's bandmates is a fried, revered guitarist who still picks out flabbergasting notes, but they're strange now. George thinks he'd play guitar remotely like his bandmate if his bandmate were a drunk. He's a skinny 16-year-old prodigy from Brixton drinking gin and watching dead guitarists play the blues with old acoustic instruments on some TV thing. Every older era's sense of scale and vintage tech turn off the young, but to radicals like George it's especially deterring. Between the dead guitarist's minor outreach and the distant, scratchy footage, they might as well be fiddling with loaded rifles that'll only hurt themselves. That's how other people's sadness sounds to George when he cares at all. The blues originators could be dolphins signaling their primitive unhappiness to more experimental artists. The fact that even innovative art grows cordial over time is a catastrophe that makes groundbreaking young musicians with drinking problems for good reasons know they can't be gods with giant amps despite the bliss that animates them when they're trying hard. George is playing his unplugged Strat with the TV's ghosts and hoping his bandmate hasn't quit their band despite the recent hellishness of being with him. He and the other bands have been yelling at one another in the background for a long time. That sounded usual of late, but not the silence ever since that will not stop. George's mind is saying, if my bandmate quit, I'm dead. George's bandmate joins him on the couch and sits unnaturally close. He's never longed to be right next to George until right now, and it's disorienting to be pressed against someone he only hugs on stage in acts of showmanship, and his dilated eyes are wet from having quit their band. He knows he needs to say goodbye, but first he tries watching the TV. George isn't bold enough to be the leader of the band or play the notes alone without lessening their vistas. If the band breaks up, there'll just be 2 casualties instead of 1. Their fans aren't smart enough to understand their genius anyway, so would George's lack of daring even sound that different? Still, George would know. Is that a problem? George's bandmate used to play guitar in shitty local bands as though they mattered. The leader of a critically anointed band that played electric blues observed him bend strings incongruously and fit him in their higher ranks. George's bandmate gigged and played on albums with this band until their orthodoxy started to feel dumbass and claustrophobic. He started his own band that used the blues as roots, not as criterion. He came across a 15-year-old George playing wildly with a local band and hired the boy to be their novelty. Their complicated grittiness exhilarated critics, which ushered in the public who didn't understand a thing but lied so they could gawk at George, who looked 13 years old, if anything. But George's bandmate wanted to rewire the way sound whistles through guitars, which needed psychedelic drugs, he thought. George needed to destroy something inside himself that no one else could understand to play at all, and alcohol helped. Their problems worked artistically, but George's bandmate went insane, and George's playing stalled, and now it's all fucked up and over. George's bandmate watches him exaggerate the notes that legends play so simply in the past. He doesn't know if he's too fried to judge the distance anymore, but even on a muted Strat, there's something cold in George's tone that, say, that legends just unleash into their music like hysteria. This so depresses George's bandmate that he wants to join the band again, but doesn't. He tries stroking George's head in hopes that with the help of psychedelic drugs, he'll somehow feel what's going wrong inside a brain so young, yet status quo. He can't, and George tenses at the touch, which makes his playing worse, which makes him stop and drink instead. So George's bandmate borrows the guitar and plays the licks. George drinks. Even 6 weeks back, he would have learned something, or thought he had, from studying his bandmate's outre fingering and hazardous decisions. He might have taken the guitar and tried to top him, and their band would peak. This difference kills him, so he grabs the instrument away, then throws it at the TV set, but nothing breaks. So that's that. The band is over, even if, when George's bandmate plays sans George in the future, if, that is, he doesn't drug himself into a state where music sounds too idiotic, it could expose his young friend's insufficiencies and so detach his risky notes from the cohesion George's playing lent them that he'll just end up scribbling obscure crap. "Why did you do that?" asked George's bandmate. He's on his feet, retrieving the Strat from where it struck the floor. Now he sits down again, already playing it. "Because you quit," George said. "You're not inside yourself," says George's bandmate. He tries to twist his guilt into an interstellar note. "Is that it?" George asks. "I know I'll sound like I'm a barking dog, but I love you," says George's bandmate. "So don't quit," George says so flatly that he knows he really means it. "Do you still believe in reinventing sound?" asks George's bandmate. By now his soloing has edged into a string of noise. "Sometimes," George says. What do you think about when you believe that? Asked George's bandmate. Usually you, George says. Me doing what? George's bandmate says. By now he's playing notes that don't connect and make no sense at all. Not this, George says, and blunts the fretboard with his hand. Not this crazy motherfucking sounding shit that makes me feel so lost. Whomsoever George is chatting with types or thinks as raucously as he does. To guess, they're in their teens or early 20s, two needy losers or ironic raconteurs using punctuation marks and letters on their keyboard like little shovels, as though the English language is a bunch of dirt so they'll sound as convoluted as they really are. Every website's chat room hauls in lonesome people editing their vibes into emoticons and cramping up their sentences, but the site George frequents is for maniacs. To visitors, it might appear as though a bunch of suicidal people are transcribing some collective self-inflicted shootout, wherein the typos are escaping bits of shrapnel, but for them it's more like finger painting. George is like a dolphin flagging humans from beneath articulation's choppy surface. It's a form of operatic laziness about the rules of composition dating back to when the internet freed every word that has eroded or been tortured over time into a jewel-like, pleading noise that helps George blurt and cry in public without losing his composure. He's slopping out his tumult while trying to detect if any other fumbling chatters are upset because of him, and he may have isolated one. There's just the trace of intake in the guy's harangue, dense, or dings, or maybe even wounds as codependent as those calling and responding bleats that saxophonist traded in the jazz records his father played incessantly. If all the chatters, George included, were just segments in a kind of typist choir, each performing a distinctive tonal fraction of some abrasive score, then that's too difficult to imagine being true. So maybe if their heated ramblings are just linguistic shreds dispensing outward from some disco ball-like application embedded in the website, which could possibly be true, then if the garbage in their voices could be scraped away, maybe they're intelligent or draw less stupid pictures or are prettier or something great that some vindictive lesser mortals have so teased or criticized into seclusion that they're only true when fighting one another for attention with a font's cachet of modifiers as their weaponry. Maybe when they're not online, they shadow colleges or high schools' walls. Maybe they're goths or emos who have gussied up life's hellishness into a daily Halloween. Maybe their trendiness solved people's meanness into an issue of conflicting taste in fashion, which hurts less but makes it extremely difficult for them to make close friends. Maybe they write poetry about their feelings and read that to one another while imagining their listeners are attachés or scouts from lyrically impaired but otherwise amazing bands. Maybe no one actually listens, they just wait their turn to read and vice versa, so they don't know why they feel comfortable yet miserably alone when they're together. Maybe they grew bold enough one day to post their poems on websites set aside for gloomy, unsophisticated artists and admirers of incompetent, cathartic art. Maybe they grew confident to stop pretending their scribbles were poetry instead of suicidal scrawls they might have chickened out and torn in shreds were not the internet a wildly more rewarding trash can. Maybe someone loved them once or twice, or said they did, which they no more believe than actors buy the love of fans that only know them when their feelings are impersonations. So love got lost, and now that they're so doomed or wish they were, they know that mutual addiction will have to do, and they're trying to addict someone right now. At some point, George's chatmate hints it might be safe to switch on their respective webcams and illuminate their separate cockpits, and George, gambling that the correlations in their ranting back and forth will make his chatmate's face a witching mirror image, types "okay" amongst a burst of words about his less than magical appearance. George is startled that his chatmate is a little boy, maybe 12 years old at most. He's sitting in a brightly daylit room with posters of some athlete on the walls, and he looks strangely tickled that George is old enough to be his father and lives far enough away from him that, judging by a wall clock on the background, It's the middle of the night there. My English, you already know it is very bad, the boy says, in some thick and somber accent. He leans into his desktop to study George, who sees some bruises on his face. I thought you were faking it like I was, George says. No, the boy says. I try to write very hard. So, where are you fucked up, George asks. Because my father killed my mother, the boy says. He leans back and looks away and starts to cry. And now he's raping me sometimes. I wish I could do something to help, George says, but you look like you live very far away. The boy gives George a careful glance. Why are you sad? He asks. Because, God, so many reasons, George says. I've been bipolar all my life, and now it's gotten even worse, and they're saying I'm psychotic. I want to kill myself, the boy says. You shouldn't, George says. He mumbles shit under his breath and tenses up and moves his cursor to the spot where he can shut the application with a tap. You'll hurt someone. Hurting other people is the only reason I don't do it. No, just me, the boy says. No one cares. Look, George says. If you told me this when we were chatting, I might have thought, whatever. I don't know this guy. Maybe he's lying. But you're a little kid, and I can't let you hurt me. I won't hurt you, the boy says. He grabs his face and sobs and starts to shout things in some other language, and it's so frightening that George could make some little kid he barely even knows feel this horrible. This is called Face Eraser. My name is pronounced Gabriel. I was born on Halloween. Do the math. I'm dark, and I like dark, so don't like me. I'm cries. Very cries. Wah. Ever since I was young, I like to include blood in the poetry I write. I like to write about what's happening to me as I write. If anyone would like to make me bleed by doing horrible things to me while I write about what you are doing to me, my roommates are out of town until a week from Friday. I like the emotionless function of insects. People used to make fun of my eyes, which is ridiculous. Who makes fun of eyes? I like giving live chickens to homeless people and to see how they deal with it. I arrange the flowers in old people's gardens so they spell swear words. I'm a polyglot, very good at making those ah sounds. Both of my arms are covered in scars from wrist to shoulder from self-harm. I do not exaggerate, but I've recovered. I also have a phobia about phones and cannot talk on them. I like praying, going to church, and reading the Bible. Kidding. I got an ass like, whoa. But only if I shave it. Want my ass forever? Drug me, ask my face. Love getting duct taped to a tree and fucked with a tree branch by guys who are senior citizens or high on crystal. Love feeling a knife in me scraping my bones. I fantasize about an aging 35-plus skater boy cutting my nipples off with scissors or maybe sawing me in half. Hello, death. I am afraid I'm going to jump off the bridge near my house soon if this doesn't, quote-unquote, happen. I would also crawl or swim or take whatever means to get to him. Hope I can at least meet someone in Virginia, Maryland, D.C., Pennsylvania, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee, or Kentucky, and college-aged to around 30s who'll take their shoes and socks off and let me smell it. You can write it on my tombstone. I wanted it. I will be on Amel. If you're from Poland or somewhere, you can take off your socks using email messages. Yes, I have mental problems. Big fucking surprise. I had a great run in my teens, and now I just want to cry. Warning. I'm 18, laugh out loud, wink, wink, but my face looks like an old boxer's. Oh, want to see my monster cock? I don't fucking have one. I'm also blind in one eye. Bugs Bunny are the best cartoon in the world, more into sci-fi, fiction, true story, a little on love story, horror, suspense, comedy, animated, 3D, and etc. I just love watching all types of movies. Polar Express. I do art appreciation a lot. Is that nerd stuff? I think I'm nerd. Am I? Quote, we all wear masks, and the time comes when we cannot remove them without removing some of our own skin. End quote. That's supposed to be you talking about me. Intellectual shit. But I can throw an amazing dinner party. What are your other two wishes? This one time I requested Wannabe, and the DJ played it, and then immediately afterwards, he seemingly unprovoked played Under Pressure, and I was like, wow, what a time to be alive. But I also like movies that are confusing and take a few times to watch before they truly make sense. I search for a darkness that becomes opaque and as impassable as lead once I'm inside it. I'm not one-dimensional, so there's hope, right? Right? Yes, I just used an interrobang. And I also broke a grammar rule by using more than 2 exclamation question marks to convey emotion. Lots of people saying, only my friends and those who know me, but not really, that I have multiple personality. Ha ha, I know that's impossible, but I always do love crashing in every impossible matter, making it possible. I can't stop, it's a mania. My straight roommate friend, who was an old school type boss of a department of engineers for decades, says I'm bipolar and autistic. But crime lab Mason Schreiner's straight friend thinks I'm fine for sures. But flattered to know, after they got to know my body, I was inversely and a counterpart of those descriptions they used to describe me. That's what they said. Sublime would be if all people we knew and we did not, sublime would be if all people we knew and we did not need to know anything, but since then we would have no motivation to learn because we would know who is who, thus becoming a living monotone, where there is no advantage to anyone. Okay, it's time to sing the Doom song. Until 6 months ago, I was a singer-dancer. I was trying to break into the industry. I wrote this for an assignment in my English class. Quote, literature stirs my soul, music drives my being into the corners of eternity. Beethoven lifts me to the loftiness of human pathos and existence. Brahms spreads my wings and drives me to hover above the earth, end quote. I still have a memory of that boy who can talk to you. I had a stroke during the beating, yeah. So my voice is slurred, sounds drunk. To quote someone, Gabriel does nothing but bring you down. I'm past tense of hang. I'm a freshman at Columbia studying comp sci and web app design. Hooray for that. Please don't tell my girlfriend I am here. When people still liked me, they said I looked like what you hoped that McCulkin boy from Home Alone would have grown up to look like at 18 instead of what he actually ended up looking like. Also have awesome kissable lips you will be willing to kiss until your lips fall apart. Do I look like one of your friends? No. I am trying to lose weight. Everyone says I'm insane and that I'm too thin, if anything, but look close and one can see the pig is overweight in pics taken last week on February 6, 2021. Even though I may look thin, I am still overweight, and needless to say, I'm horny as hell. If you have a problem with that, you can go stab yourself and tell someone who really cares. Don't make it look like a suicide so your family gets the insurance money. Otherwise, I have a naturally sad face and I'm 100% healthy. Carpe diem. See you soon inside me, but not tomorrow night. I wish I had my own motorbike so I can ride and fall in the icy road. I like cats, but you would never know it. I also like puppies, but only when they're in bags in the river. My only other dislike, and I've given it lots of thought, is female children. I do not like them, not just sexually, I mean at all. I am trained in self-defense, so even with my arms tied behind my back, and I can still dislocate your arms. I had a guy once put 2 drumsticks in my ass because he thought it was funny. I love that kind of creativity. Why? Beats me. I used to have one of my dogs sleep in my room when I was a kid, and when I was about 12, that's when I started jacking off, so I decided I'd let my dog lick my cock and my hole. And one time my dog got so into it, he bited and chewed up my hole so bad that I had to be rushed to the hospital, and my parents freaked out and put the dog to sleep, and I loved it. I had another guy get a duvet cover printed with life-size image of me and invited 144 guys, 144 equals a gross, to come on the duvet, and when complete, the duvet was hung in a gallery under a UV light. Sad reality. Quote, "A life is black, whiten it as you will." E.H. Chapin. Think about it. Yes, I used to be that porn star. Did you want to go balls deep in me 2 years ago? Take a hike, bub. I've faced the truth. You can look like motherfucking anything, but I'm slave to Moz. Stephen Patrick Morrissey. Yeah, I know. Weird, right? I would love you to be someone tough who's into Moz, but that's an oxymoron. No one tough could tolerate Moz's sensitivity and razor wit, so instead, I foresee an interesting conflict where there is someone who will be driven into a rage by my soul's disloyalty, but who will not take away my Moz collection. Interest in a guy who has magic power. Several have suggested to me that what I am secretly asking for is to be deprived of my Moz collection and therewith my obsession. While I can understand how that would seem to be my hidden agenda, I will say respectfully to those of you who might share this interpretation and approach me in the future that you are taking an overly psychological approach to me. My other request is that you use a recipe for meatloaf that I will bring along with me. It was my mother's recipe. She's dead. I'm so glad I don't have her breathing down my neck anymore. My dad's a dick. I just came out of a horrible hospital. It was horrific, but I'm cool. I'm okay now. You really need to listen to me because I'm telling you the truth. Trust me. Well, okay. I'm not okay. I am not fucking okay. I have a knack of pretending I'm okay when in fact I am not. I have this sort of defense thing, I guess. I am also that kind of useless human called a flaneur. That's where you come in. I want anyone to pick up a hammer and bash my skull in, then literally tear me apart. If you spare my life, please, that would be such a boner. I remember the first time I got the shit beaten out of me, I kept the receipt. Or you could call a friend over. Dude, you gotta come see this asshole I totally wrapped in duct tape. There's nothing left of him showing. Or you could smear my body with stuff bears like to eat, watch the bears eat, and swallow me, and film it with your phone. Send it to my piece of shit dad. I'll give you his number before. Can it be done? Wait. I doubt you've seen this movie, Johnny's Got His Gun. It frightened me to death. Well, in the movie, a young soldier gets blown totally to shit in World War II, and he ends up in a hospital. No arms, no legs, no face, can't talk, can't move. He's just a body that they teach to spell out words by moving its chest up and down. You would look at that body and think, no way is that the same guy. But when the body moves its chest up and down, all it does is talk about its past. It won't shut up about it. If its past was food, it would weigh 1 billion pounds. And its past is a match for what the soldier did before he got blown up. That's why, legally, it's him. Understand? Okay, why did I just get hit with depression? Me, no filter. I say whatever comes into my head, if easily butthurt, a complete prick, swerve. I'm being evicted from my apartment. Fucking hell, Jesus Christ shit. Buzz me on 98333566953. I'll send you a picture. I'm in the one in the picture who's not ugly. Since people can't seem to figure it out, I'm the white boy on the left. Your left. Whew. Now I'm looking at this long-ass paragraph thinking, Jesus Christ, what have I done? I'm gonna go take a hot shower. It's like a normal shower, but with me in it. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to read 2 more things. Because only 2 or because that's too many? Ugly man. 2 months ago, I found out I have a serious disease that's so rare, it hasn't earned one of those nicknames like the flu. Even if I could pronounce its very long Latin name, the words would mean nothing. All you need to know is I'm being eaten alive by infections, and I'll be dead within 3 months if I'm lucky. The worst side effect is a gradual, total destruction of my skin. It peels and flakes away in sheets. If I didn't spend half of my day in a tanning salon, I'd look like the moon. I'd have itched myself to death by now if my fingers weren't swollen into very painful, misshapen knobs. When I was first diagnosed, my boyfriend said it didn't matter. But when there weren't enough porn DVDs in the world or a big enough increase in his allowance to give him an erection when we were in the same room, I cut him a final check and sent him on his way. Now I buy prostitutes instead. It's obvious as soon as I undress, they'll take no pleasure from earning money from me. But they need the money just like I need to rub my husk against them. And I imagine they think they've tasted worse and have been tasted by worse. You don't know what it means to feel my chapped, disfigured lips and cock and hands saw away at something so downy. It's inexplicable. That's why it's hard for me to talk about the fact that my disease is so contagious, a little peck on the cheek is enough to almost guarantee transmission. In a few weeks, all the prostitutes I've hired will be the last boys on earth whom anyone would pay. Not long after I'm dead, they'll be dead. Some nights I fantasize about telling them what saints they are, but I don't. Still, there are times when I almost get the feeling they know. This is the last thing. It's called The Crater. At 3 a.m., or whatever time it happens, life in San Marino, California isn't much, but it's what it is. A gun fires in a house, and now it's something for them. Others in the house, mother, brother, are roughly woken up. They think about the sound, recognize it, and that's that. It's the least surprise ever, or not it, or that it happened, or with a gun, or that they had to hear it, or why now, but why. The brother, now awake, now just the brother, stands before the noisy door. He hears Nick Drake. He says, "George," loud enough to penetrate the door and Drake, but it's not a question. His mother is behind him down the hall. He can feel it, but he's too shocked to turn and say, "Don't come." What do they feel? I don't know, but it must be very ugly since so much of it is hatred. The door is locked. George, George, George. George is, I don't know, sitting slumped forward. Blood is pouring from his mouth and nose, I was told that. There's a crater in his head. The top back part, it's full of mangled brains and skull and blood. He fired into his mouth, I was told, and so it would have to be there. The crater can't talk or do anything. It needs an artist. The brother kicks the door in. The room's very small, and he sees what I described. What I described will be the only thing he ever sees when he remembers George, beginning now and more resolutely once he has to make a choice between looking at a box of ashes on his mother's mantelpiece or remembering this. This will be like George's album cover. "Don't, Mom, don't," he says. Someone calls emergency, and let's say a vehicle arrives. 2 men in uniforms get out, both men since women weren't thought capable of transcending this much trauma in the 80s. They enter the house. One is older, tough. The other is young and took the job for different reasons. They're shown George's body and hate it. The young one, Joe, let's say, is the one who has to do things around the body, and the older one, named something else, who cares, is the one who has to go into the living room and ask the family questions and then use their phone to call in a report. How old? The older one asks. 30, George's mother says. It's his birthday. You can guess the rest. In 2 days, George will be ashes. He'll weigh 4.7 pounds. There'll be a funeral to which almost no one is invited. The estranged father, stoners from the park that George has started hanging out with, people who've been kids when George was and haven't seen him since. They won't invite me. They could call my mother's house and try to reach me, but they won't. Nick Drake won't be played. There'll be no obituary in the local paper. No one in the family will want to write it. They'll redo the room, sell the house, move. They won't tell the newer owners. They'll just erase an awful, sick, depressing man. Joe is in the room doing things he is assigned to do. He looks at the body from different angles, in detail, up close, at the bloody face, at the bloody floor, at the gun, at the hand it's resting on, always writing notes or checking boxes on a form clamped to a clipboard. He keeps looking at the crater. He can't help it. He has no feelings that he knows of, and the wound is fascinating to him, even though it's what it is, and there is nothing to write down about it. Why are you so interested? Asked the crater. The voice is male, like the body would have had, but not as hued as you'd expect the voice of someone who would do that to himself to be. And the crater doesn't move in sync with it, or even shiver like a woofer. Joe is startled, but he's always startled when something like that happens. Death is so unknown. I'm an artist, he says. I look at everything artistically. It's easier that way. I was an artist too, the crater said. Or I tried to be. What kind? Joe asks. My body played guitar, the crater says. Joe goes back to doing what he's told to do. The crater has gone silent for a while, so maybe it has died. You there? Joe asks it. Thinking, the crater says. About what? Joe asks. A friend, the crater says. A good friend? Joe asks. Yes, but not good enough, the crater says. Thank you.
For maybe the first time in my life, I'm speechless. One more time for Derek McCormack and Dennis Cooper, please. And thanks again to our staff and volunteers tonight. Thanks to all of you for coming. Really extraordinary. Please come back. We have a reading tomorrow with Ibrahim Nasrallah and a bunch of other stuff that I've totally forgotten, but you can find it online. Bathrooms there, upstairs, smoking on the curb. Have a great night.